السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا وحبيبنا وشفيعنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد. I hope everybody had a good fast today and had a good day today and was able to take advantage of their time and read lots of Qur'an, make lots of dhikr, make lots of dua, pray lots of extra voluntary prayers and nawafil. And I hope that everybody is doing well and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts from all of us, accepts all of our fasts and our prayers and our du'as and our and all of our good deeds. Ameen. It is the 9th fast, and inshallah it will be the 10th night of Taraweeh. And inshallah we will be talking about the 9th juz of the Qur'an. And I mentioned yesterday that the 8th juz is half of Surah Al-An'am and half of Surah Al-A'raf. Right? The first half of the juz is Surah Al-An'am, the second half of the juz is Surah Al-A'raf. And then when you get to the 9th juz, 3/4 of the juz is Surah Al-A'raf, and then the last quarter, the last fourth is Surah Al-Anfal. And Surah Al-A'raf, as I mentioned, continues the theme of speaking about Tawheed and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and worshiping Him and only Him. But now we get some more examples through stories. Right? In Surah Al-An'am, we had the story of Ibrahim mentioned. But now in Surah Al-A'raf, I mentioned that it spoke about Nuh alayhi salam and Hud and Salih and Lut and Shu'aib alayhim salatu wassalam. And then when you get to the 9th juz, it concludes the story of Shu'aib, and there was a common theme with all of those prophets mentioned. It was that they all had the same message and their people all rejected them almost in the same manner. That they were not going to believe, they weren't going to they weren't going to follow him, and then the punishment came to them, right? But with the next prophet that's mentioned, and this is actually surprisingly one of the longest stories about Musa alayhi salam mentioned in the Qur'an, was his interaction with Fir'aun. Because when Musa alayhi salam, when he came to deliver the message, of course the children of Israel, Bani Israel, they were already believers. They already had their faith. They were upon the religion of their forefather Yusuf alayhi salam and his father Yaqub and his father Ishaq and his father Ibrahim alayhi salam. The problem was with Fir'aun. So when you hear about the da'wah, it's not immediately between Musa alayhi salam and Bani Israel, but in fact it's between Musa alayhi salam and Fir'aun. So of course Musa alayhi salam, he comes with the message and he tells Fir'aun that there's only one God that has the right to be worshipped. And then Fir'aun, in all of his arrogance, he challenges Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He doesn't say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or God, but he says the God of the children of Israel, of Bani Israel. And they continue to go back and forth, and then he challenges him because Musa alayhi salam says that I have come with clear signs, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave Musa alayhi salam certain miracles to perform in order to convince the people. And back in that time, magic was very prevalent in society. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave Musa alayhi salam different miracles that to us would look like magic tricks, but these were real. These were not tricks, right? Because the magicians, what they would do is they would trick people into thinking that whatever they're doing, it's an illusion. It looks real, but it's not. But Musa alayhi salam, the miracles he came with were real, because this was done through the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Musa alayhi salam, he came, of course, he had the staff, his walking stick that turned into a snake, a real snake. And he had the miracle of putting his hand under his arm. And when he would take it out, shining bright, and when he would put it under his other arm, it would come out looking diseased. So this was one of the other miracles that Musa alayhi salam had. So when he challenged the magicians, we know this famous story, the snake of Musa alayhi salam, because it was real, it went and it ate the fake snakes of the magicians. And maybe they were using rope or something to make it look like a real snake, but they were fake. So the snake came and ate up all the fake snakes. And because of this, the magicians, they recognized that this is the truth. This is the truth, right? They saw the clear signs. And because they were the ones that had knowledge of magic back then, they knew that there's no way that this was magic and that this was the truth and this was from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they immediately believed. And then what did Fir'aun do to them? He punished them for believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instead of worshipping him, because Fir'aun saw himself as a god and wanted the people to worship him. So he tied, what they would do back then, the one of the most severe punishments they had for people back then was that they would tie them to a tree trunk and they would chop off one arm and one leg, right? They would chop off if they would chop off the right arm, then they would chop off the opposite leg, and vice versa. So this was one of the most severe punishments they would do to people. But the magicians, because they were shown such a clear sign and such a strong evidence, it did not shake their faith, their newfound iman that they had built up. So they did not give in to Fir'aun, and they took their punishment and they praised Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in a sense, they died shaheed in this manner because Fir'aun punished them and killed them merely for believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And it goes on in detail between some of the conversations between Musa alayhi salam and Fir'aun, and then it goes into some of the stories between Musa alayhi salam and Bani Israel. So after they crossed the river, they came upon some people that were worshiping some idols, right? And also they were wondering that, look, why don't the people of Egypt, the people of Fir'aun, they would worship some gods as well. Why don't we make an idol for ourselves that we can worship? And subhanallah, Musa alayhi salam just saved them from Fir'aun and his people, and is guiding them personally towards the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yet they chose to fall into these things. It's almost laughable that so many times Bani Israel was given clear signs and clear evidences to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yet time and time again, and this is a reoccurring theme in any of these surahs that mention Bani Israel, and so far almost every single day we've mentioned Bani Israel to some extent in the first juz, and the third juz, and the fourth, and almost every single juz in the beginning mentions Bani Israel. And it is said that the reason why Bani Israel is mentioned so much, especially in the beginning like this, in these beginning ajaza, is because of the similarities between the ummah of Musa alayhi salam and the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So this is why we see a lot of times so many examples, and why Musa alayhi salam himself is mentioned the most and more than any other prophet in the Qur'an. Musa alayhi salam is mentioned the most, right? Even the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the book was revealed to him, but he's only mentioned 2 or 3 times. There's many incidents that allude to him, but by name the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is mentioned only a handful of times. But Musa alayhi salam is mentioned over and over again, or stories with Bani Israel is mentioned over and over again. And this is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions past nations as a lesson for us to ponder over and to take warnings from and to learn lessons from, right? So that we don't fall into the same mistakes. So especially because the ummah of Musa, the nation of Musa, more so than any other nation, because of the similarities between the two ummahs, between the two nations. So they came upon these people that were worshiping an idol, and then Musa alayhi salam, he went away for a while to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for about 40 days. And he left Harun alayhi salam in charge of the people. But then there was a man who decided to round up all the people and say that let's build an idol. So they made the golden calf, the other famous story with Bani Israel. They made the golden calf, and because it was hollow inside, when wind would pass through, it would make a sound, and they thought it was, their God responding to them. But of course, this was all fake, and none of it was real. And once Musa alayhi salam came back and saw this, he became so angry. But before I get to that, while Musa alayhi salam was away, he was able to speak with, of course, he spoke directly to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he was given the tablets. وَكَتَبْنَا لَهُ فِي الْأَلْوَاحِ, right? The tablets that had everything. مِن كُلِّ شَيْءٍ مَوْعِظَةٍ وَتَفْصِيلًا لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ. Everything was laid out on these tablets for them, in order for them to have guidance. Right? وَأْمُرْ قَوْمَكَ يَأْخُذُوا بِأَحْسَنِهَا, right? And he was given those tablets to command the people to for them to take it and to be upon to be upon goodness, and to be guided, and to be on the straight path. And one of the stories that comes from this is that Musa alayhi salam, he asked to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, I want to see you directly. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him, no, you cannot see me directly. Look at that mountain over there, I will reveal myself to that mountain. If the mountain does not crumble, then I will reveal myself to you. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed just a tiny bit of his nur to the mountain, and the mountain turned to dust. And just that tiny bit caused Musa alayhi salam, even though he wasn't seeing it directly, right? This was a side effect from being in the presence of that mountain being turned to dust. Musa alayhi salam himself fainted just from this tiny bit of light that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had shown upon the mountain. And he fainted, and when he got up, he said, Inni tubtu ilayka wa ana minal mu'minin, right? That he immediately realized that he could not see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly, especially in this life, right? We'll all see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the next life. In this life, we cannot see him. So he made tawbah. He said that I am the first to believe. So then when Musa alayhi salam went back to his people, he saw what they were doing, and he got so angry. And we know that Musa alayhi salam, from his story growing up in the household of Fir'aun, he did have a bit of a temper, right? And Musa alayhi salam, he grabbed his brother Harun by the beard, and he asked him, what is going on? What happened here? And of course, his brother, he said, I have nothing to do with this. I tried to stop them, but the people overcame me, and they threatened to kill me. So do not think of me as from these people. I'm not one of them. I tried to stop them. So then Musa alayhi salam immediately asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness. He said, قَالَ رَبِّ اغْفِرْ لِي وَلِأَخِي وَأَدْخِلْنَا فِي رَحْمَتِكَ. Forgive me and my brother, and enter us into your mercy. So once his anger died down, and those people realized what they did was wrong, right? They realized that they shouldn't have worshipped the calf, but still they did, and they committed a very, very big mistake. But once Musa alayhi salam's anger had subsided, he chose to take 70 of his best men, and he took them and tried to teach them the ways of the tablets that was given to him. But some of them said that we're not going to believe unless you show us Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And because of this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala became very angry with them, and the earth rumbled, and these people were caused to die. So then Musa alayhi salam, he immediately reached out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and said, if you wanted to destroy them, you could have done so way before. I took 70 of the best men, how can I go back empty-handed? Please bring them back to life, and please worship them. And this is where, the very beautiful ayah comes in, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, he says, وَرَحْمَتِي وَسِعَتْ كُلُّ شَيْءٍ, right? وَرَحْمَتِي وَسِعَتْ كُلُّ شَيْءٍ, that his mercy, although if somebody does something wrong, somebody does something wrong, his mercy, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala becomes angry with them, his mercy overtakes any of that, right? His mercy is more vast than any of that, right? So all we have to do is we just have to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we have to worship him properly. Right? فَسَأَكْتُبُهَا لِلَّذِينَ يَتَّقُونَ. We can earn his mercy, his vast mercy, as long as we are aware of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have taqwa, we have God consciousness. وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْتُونَ الزَّكَاةَ, and we establish the giving of zakah, right? And pay attention here that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he's talking about how to gain his mercy, and he mentions having taqwa, right? الَّذِينَ يَتَّقُونَ, right? And then he says وَيُؤْتُونَ الزَّكَاةَ. He's mentioning certain things that will allow us to gain his mercy. So he says وَاكْتُبْ لَنَا فِي هَذِهِ الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً, and ordain for us in this world good, and in the hereafter, وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ, right? So then he says وَاكْتُبْ لَنَا فِي هَذِهِ الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ إِنَّا هُدْنَا إِلَيْكَ, and in the hereafter, indeed we have turned to you, right? We have believed in you. And then that's where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says قَالَ عَذَابِي أُصِيبُ بِهِ مَنْ أَشَاءُ, that my punishment will afflict anyone whom he chooses to, right? If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills, his punishment will go to them. But وَرَحْمَتِي وَسِعَتْ كُلُّ شَيْءٍ, my mercy is, or encompasses everything. It is more vast than anything in this world. فَسَأَكْتُبُهَا, I will write it, or I will ordain it for those لِلَّذِينَ يَتَّقُونَ وَيُؤْتُونَ الزَّكَاةَ وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ بِآيَاتِنَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. So I'm repeating this again and again to kind of emphasize that, look, if we want to earn Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy, then we have to pay attention to what he's mentioning. His mercy will, the type of people his mercy will be for. لِلَّذِينَ يَتَّقُونَ, for those who are righteous, for those who are God conscious, for those who have taqwa. وَيُؤْتُونَ الزَّكَاةَ, and give zakah. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ بِآيَاتِنَا يُؤْمِنُونَ, and for the people who believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's verses, or his signs. And it's not just this last part is a more general term, because it can mean that the signs that came directly, like for the people of the book, you know, Isa alayhi salam came with so many miracles, Musa alayhi salam came with so many miracles, or it could be when we think about ourselves as Muslims, it's whatever the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam came with, and he came with the Qur'an. He came with the Qur'an, so we have to believe everything that's in the Qur'an in order to gain Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy, which he mentions is more vast and encompasses all things. And then after this, there comes the story of some people who broke the Sabbath. And in Judaism, on the Sabbath, which is a Saturday, they're not allowed to do any type of labor or work. They're supposed to stay in their homes and just worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all day, and just worship him all day. But they decided to break the Sabbath, some of them, because what happened is that, and I'm sure you all have heard this story many times before, on Saturdays, and this was a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on Saturdays, the fish would come to the water. There'd be lots of fish in the water on Saturdays, and not as much fish on any other day. So what they decided to do is that they thought that they could find some loopholes or try and trick Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they thought that, you know, they could, go and leave their nets out on Saturday and come collect them the next day on Sunday. Even though this is not what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intended, he didn't want for them to do these things. And then it mentions that there were three types of people in this situation. There were the ones who broke the Sabbath, the ones who directly disobeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There were the ones who didn't break the Sabbath. And then there was a third group, the people who didn't break the Sabbath, and they tried to advise the people who would break the Sabbath. So then the people who didn't break the Sabbath, who obeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but didn't say anything to the ones that disobeyed Allah, they asked the third group, why are you doing this? Why don't you just leave those people alone? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will come and punish them. So they said that, look, we are advising them because so that we can have an excuse with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that, look, we told them not to do it, so that nothing is left to chance. You know, we don't want to take a chance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might hold us accountable for the wrongdoings of these people. So we want to tell them so that we do our part, and also so that maybe some of them may listen and be guided. And this is an important aspect of our religion, which is Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi anil Munkar, which a lot of times people, they're afraid to do. If you see a wrongdoing, and this is a blatant and clear wrongdoing, right? You should advise your brother, and of course there's ways to advise one another, right? You have to advise with wisdom and know when to be lenient and when to be hard and harsh. And this was the wisdom seen with the dealings of the Prophet ﷺ with his companions. He knew when to be lenient. He knew when to be hard. So it's not just you go up to people and, you know, they call them the haram police, where you just go up to them and start saying, that's haram, that's haram, that's haram. No, there's a way to advise people, and it comes with experience and wisdom, right? Because we're not the Prophet ﷺ. We have to be able to know how to interact with different types of people and how to convey certain messages to certain people, right? But this is something that, you know, people are either scared to do because they might come off too harsh, or people are too overzealous in doing because they think that, you know, they turn into the haram police and they just go around telling people that what you're doing is wrong, you're going to go to hell, you're going to be punished. This doesn't always work, right? And some people, they're scared to do it because they don't want to feel like they're judging the other person, or the other person will respond in a harsh manner that, oh, only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can judge me. Lakum dinukum waliya din, right? They'll misquote this verse. To you is your religion and to me is mine. That's not how this verse works. If we're Muslims, we have to follow and abide by the laws that are laid out by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's not that you have your own version of Islam and I have my own version of Islam. No, that's only between the Muslims and the kuffar. That's why it's revealed in Surah Al-Kafirun, right? Not Surah Al-Muslimun or Surah Al-Mu'minun, Surah Al-Kafirun. The Quraysh or the Mushrikun, they had their own religion. They worshipped their own gods. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his followers had their religion, and they worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. This is what lakum dinukum waliya din means. And it's comical how people misquote this ayah so much, thinking that, oh, who are you to judge me? But it's not judging. This is sincere advice. Ad-dinun nasiha, right? The religion is sincere advice. And you have to be able to advise others sincerely and with wisdom. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that the people who did that were the ones who were successful and the ones who earned Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's favor. And He mentions them in the Qur'an. He doesn't mention the ones who obeyed but didn't advise the wrongdoers. They weren't even worth mentioning. So we don't know what happened to them. Maybe they were punished, and maybe they were accepted with the ones who advised as well. But the ones who blatantly broke the commandment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they were turned into monkeys. This was their punishment, right? وَكُونُوا قِرَدَةً خَاسِئِينَ. They were turned into like vile monkeys, right? And next, there was more mutiny by the children of Israel, right? Because time and time again they just kept disobeying Musa alayhi salam. No matter how many clear signs they were given, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in this surah that, you know, the mountain was brought above them, right? It was raised above them, where they were all under the shadow of the mountain, and it looked as if the mountain could come down at any moment and crush them. And yet they still did not believe. They still chose to disobey, and they chose to go into mutiny against Musa alayhi salam. And this is why they came out of favor with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and are the ones who are considered to have earned the wrath and the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But then the surah itself, it concludes with some beautiful ayat pertaining to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his attributes and the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? The surah starts with Tawheed and it ends with Tawheed as well, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the story. First he mentions that وَلِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى فَدْعُوهُ بِهَا. And for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most excellent names, the best of names, the most beautiful and perfect of names to describe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَدْعُوهُ بِهَا. So we should call to him through his names, which is why it's important for us to learn the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and learn the meanings and how they can apply to us and how we can call out to him in the proper manner. Because sometimes it's not just enough to say, Ya Rabbi, Ya Allah, Ya Rabbi, Ya Allah. If we really want to have our hearts into our dua and connected with our dua and pour our hearts into it and build our connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and be more sincere in our dua, then we need to learn these perfect and beautiful and excellent names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he says, and keep away from those who abuse these names, right? The names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Keep away from those who abuse his names. So يُجْزَوْنَ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. They will be punished for what they used to do. So we need to stay away from the people who might take advantage of the religion or do not do justice to the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or might try and attribute those same attributes to themselves. So we need to keep away from those, because this is evil. You're taking away the right from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then something Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions towards the end of the surah as well, that is something we should all take heed from, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he mentions وَإِذْ أَخَذَ رَبُّكَ مِنْ بَنِي آدَمَ مِنْ ظُهُورِهِمْ. So he took all of the children of Adam alayhi salam from his back, right? And this happened before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created all of us, right? This was our first meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what our fitrah or our disposition is based on. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he took all of the offspring of Adam alayhi salam from his back, and generation after generation from the first child of Adam or children of Adam alayhi salam all the way to the last child to be born in this world at the end of times. And he asked them, all of them, right? He made all of them testify by asking them, Alastu bi rabbikum? Am I not your Lord? And then we all said, because we were all there as well, we just don't remember, Qalu bala. Of course you're our Lord. Shahidna an taqulu yawm al-qiyamati inna kunna an hada ghafilin. Yes, we bear witness, so you cannot say on the day of resurrection that we were not aware of this. So this is part of our fitrah, this is our disposition that we are born with, that we attest to the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that he is our Lord, he is the only one that is worthy of our worship, and this is the essence of Tawheed. And then this surah itself is the first surah in the Qur'an that ends in sajda tilawa, right? It's an ayah that ends with sajda. So if you are going to read this juz, or if you read it yesterday, or if it's going to come up in your recitation, then remember that the last ayah, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ عِنْدَ رَبِّكَ لَا يَسْتَكْبِرُونَ عَنْ عِبَادَتِهِ وَيُسَبِّحُونَهُ وَلَهُ يَسْجُدُونَ. This is the first ayah in the current order of the Qur'an, not in order of revelation, but the order that the Qur'an was finalized in, that has a sajda tilawa, right? An ayah that where if you read it, you're recommended to do sujood, to do sajda. And the meaning of this ayah is that surely those angels, right? Those angels, or those who live in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, meaning the angels nearest to your Lord, are not too proud to worship him, right? They don't have any pride. They don't have any arrogance. That's what that means. They glorify him. The angels are constantly glorifying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they do sujood to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They prostrate to him. This is all the angels do. That is all they do, right? if they have certain duties that were given to them, they fulfill those duties, and the rest of the time, that is all they do. And there's certain angels that is all they do. And al-Bayt al-Atiq or al-Bayt al-Ma'mur, that is in the heavens, the house that is the Kaaba of the heavens, 70,000 angels enter the house only to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And once they leave, they never come back, and a new 70,000 angels come in to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what happens every single day. So this is all the angels are doing. They're glorifying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they are praying to Him and prostrating to Him. And the juz ends with Surah Al-Anfal, not much of it, just the last quarter. And very briefly, Surah Al-Anfal talks a lot about the fiqh that comes about during the wartime, right? The rulings during wartime. And Surah Al-Anfal is a Madani surah, and because it details the battle of Badr. So the surah starts off speaking about the spoils of war and how they should be divided, but it doesn't go into great detail until the ayah wa'lamu annama ghanimtum min shay', because ghanima, this word ghanima, this is the spoils of war. And I mentioned it goes into the details of the battle of Badr, and it speaks about the spiritual and the material elements that come with victory, right? There's no victory unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills for there to be victory, right? The battle of Badr was only won because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala willed for the Muslims to win, right? The battle of Uhud, it wasn't really a victory, nor was it a complete loss, right? And this was from the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The battle of Khandaq, right? The battle of the trench, the battle of Ahzab, this was a victory only by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then at the end of the juz, we are commanded to respond to the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his messenger, right? So this all comes under the heading of victory and commanding and listening to the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his messenger. And inshallah, that is it from myself. From tomorrow, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, you'll have Sheikh Ustadh Ahmed explaining the rest of the ajza from the next seven ajza, because he covered for me on Monday for juz 4. And then so inshallah we can all benefit from Sheikh Ahmed. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow all of us to benefit from these talks and any other talks we may be listening to throughout the day, and to allow us to implement whatever we learn, and whatever I said that is correct is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and whatever mistakes I may have made is from my own weaknesses and from the shaitan. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept from all of us, to accept our fasts and our prayers and our du'as and our charity and the rest of our good deeds, and to place it on our register of good deeds, and to forgive us and have mercy upon us, and to forgive those who are no longer with us, and to have mercy upon our parents and our elders and our children, and to cure those who are sick, and to help those who are under injustice and who are oppressed, and to help rectify the affairs of the Muslims around the world, and to help all of us, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide all of our affairs with his hands, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep us on the straight path. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you are the one who loves to pardon, so please pardon us, especially in this blessed month. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us with everything that is good in this life and the hereafter. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.